Hello, all. I am Euclides Coimbra from Kaizen Institute, and today we are joined by Guilherme Aibeo, who is VP Operations in Benteler Automotive Ibérica. Guilherme is responsible for components plant in Benteler Automotive. He has been with the company for 30 years, starting as production engineer, production supervisor, project manager, plant manager, and now VP Operations. Guilherme saw the introduction of Kaizen Lean in Benteler many years ago and is now using the BOS, Benteler Operating System, to manage the company on the never-ending journey to excellence. Guilherme, welcome to the Leaders in CI podcast.
Thank you, Euclides. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you. Can you briefly introduce yourself and your background?
Yeah, sure. So, Guilherme Aibeo, as you have introduced me before, I've started. First I studied electronic engineering in University of Aveiro. Then I started my career in 1994 in a company named Celcat. At the time, it was a company in Sintra area where they were producing some electric cables. I started in the maintenance department. I was not there for much time because then in November that year, 1994, I joined Benteler, where I am still today. And in Benteler, I've gone through different functions. You have already mentioned most of them. So I started as production engineer and supervising one of the shifts of production in Benteler at that time. Then 3 years after, I joined engineering department, where I was doing a bit of product engineering, also process engineering. Then later on, managing projects as project manager. In that function, I started to have my first international assignments, launching some plants and some processes in abroad, mainly in Spain and also in Italy. Then in 2004, so 10 years after, I was given the opportunity to join a Vigo project. From the beginning, it was a greenfield that Benteler launched in the area of Vigo. At that time, I accepted the challenge. I started as quality and engineering manager at that time, and then 2 years later, I assumed the responsibility of the plant and I stayed in that function during 10 years until 2016. After that, I assumed my current position as VP Ops of the region, what was the previous region in Benteler, Southern Europe. And lately, in the last year, we had some reorganization. So now I'm responsible for the component plants of Southern Europe. That includes all the Spanish plants that are 4. One plant in UK, in Corby, one plant in Turkey, in Gebze, and just in this moment we are launching. We are, let's say, building a new greenfield in Kenitra in Morocco. So this will be our 7th plant from my responsibility.
Yeah, thank you, Guilherme. So I see that you are a long time in the company, so you have a lot of experience in the company. And let's talk about the introduction of continuous improvement. We can call it Kaizen Lean in Benteler. So Benteler started looking at Lean in 92 with the launch of BOVs. Then came the name Benteler Operating System with several tools. Then came the name BOSLE, means Benteler Operating System Lean Enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And several other developments. Can you describe the story of Kaizen in Benteler from, let's say, 92, I think more than 30 years ago, until 2015, what we call the BOS 1.0 in Benteler?
Yes. Okay. I can try to do that. Well, as I mentioned, I started in production in Benteler in 1994. At that time, basically, what we had was some really basic tools like the suggestion system and some 5S tools. This was basically our. I could not. I think today it's difficult for me to call it a system, right? So we had basically these tools that we used in our plants. Then in the years 2000, more or less, we started with what we call still today BOS, Benteler Operation System. So you have to know that Benteler is still a family company. With it will be in 2026 150 years old. But we were based mainly in Germany in the 90s, and then we had a kind of exponential growth during those 20 years from the 90s until 2010. This exponential increase in terms of number of plants was not accompanied by, let's say, a structured organization. So we had, yes, several plants all around the world, but not all plants were working, let's say, with the same standards and so on. So there was at that time the first the management of the company felt the need of creating some standardizations, and they created at that time the Benteler operation system, and they defined some functions, some people dedicated to, let's say, first to create the system and then to spread the system throughout the whole organization. So at that time, I was already working in the engineering department. I also had the opportunity in Benteler in Palmela at that time to be the BOS responsible. That was the name of the function in each plant. And basically at that time, so we started to have a more systematic approach. We were introduced to some other lean tools, and we also introduced our called Lean Academy, where we were teaching our employees, not all levels, let's say until a certain level of employees, in these lean tools like SMED, TPM, and so on. Then 2010, more or less, so 10 years later, there was the need to have a more systematic approach in this system, and then that's when we had the Lean Enterprise to the BOS, so the BOS Lean Enterprise, and in this expansion phase, we introduced some other tools like the problem solving. We started to do some benchmarkings. We created what we call the best practice sharing, where, let's say, we were analyzing the best practices in each plant. We were defining with a multi-country team if that practice was really benchmarking or not. And then if it was, then we were spreading it throughout the whole organization. We introduced also the plant vision, some operational KPIs, and also the concept of model line. Model line was, let's say, our starting of having standard lines also, because until then, let's say, for each project we developed specific lines. I mean, we have some generic lines like presses, painting lines, but then specific processes like welding, assembly, and so on. It was always very specific for one product. And one of the problems we were facing already at that time was some lack of standardization. So we had, in some cases, plants with a low utilization, where for some reason the volumes of the vehicles produced by the customers of that plant were much lower than what initially foreseen, and we could not utilize that free capacity of that line that was fully dedicated to produce one specific product. So we felt at that time the need to start creating some standard equipment also that could give us some more flexibility that we didn't have at the time. And then in 2017, we launched the BOS 2.0 with Kaizen. That I think we will talk later. So I will not further develop in this moment.
So I know that you had two stages in BOS implementation: 1.0 from the 1995 until 2015, and then you went for the next stage, next development of BOS that you call BOS 2.0 in 2015. Mm-hmm. From the BOS 1.0, what do you consider was the most important or positive things in BOS 1.0, the first stage?
Well, the suggestion system was the base of that BOS 1.0, and that is still a main KPI of major importance, because that somehow motivates the participation of all the employees in the company life, right? So that I think was positive and was there from the beginning. At that time, I think that was almost the only let's say the only process that we had where we try to really involve everyone in the organization, in the company life. But then, I mean, also when we started then to develop some 5S workshops, this was also positive. It was a kind of introduction for us, and also some of those workshops we started to involve some operators. Where they were, let's say, they were given the opportunity to define the standards for their workplace, the area that where they spend the 8 hours of the day. So this was also positive in the sense that we started to involve more and more the different levels of the organization. And then some of the tools like the TPM, total productive maintenance, where we were also involving different levels and also operations in the, let's say, the first levels of maintenance in the equipments, the SMED, the changeover time, to work in reducing changeover times, to be able to do more changeovers and start with the first flow principles, very shy at the beginning, but that was, let's say, the beginning. And I think these were the main, let's say, the main positive factors of the BOS 1.0.
I remember that in the year 2000, you were also doing some Kaizen workshops just to learn the tools, like, for example, SMED in the presses in Burgos. Exactly. And you did some in the module assembly close to the custom assembly lines. So it was a period of implementing tools like SMED and trying to see how could you eliminate waste, and of course the system with the suggestion, employee suggestions. And in 2015, 2016. Benteler decided to strengthen and achieve lean factories with the BOS 2.0 and redesigned the approach. Can you explain what was done at that time in 2015? What were the major changes in how lean was implemented?
In 2000, you mean for the BOS 2.0?
The BOS 2.0, the BOS 2.0 approach. What changed from the 1.0?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, many things change. First, a much more systematic approach. An approach that was starting in the top of the company, in the COO. So, because until then, I didn't mention this before, the BOS, yes, was launched and was driven by, of course, from the top management, but they felt it was needed to have a system like other automotive companies had, but the top management was not, let's say, deploying the targets through that system, right? So there was a BOS organization starting in middle management and not directly linked with the top management. The BOS 2.0, this was for me maybe one of the most relevant changes, that it was launched directly from the top management with their direct involvement and also leadership. So in this case, it was created at that time a board functioned with one person that was the first COO at that time, that within his functions, one of the responsibilities was to further develop and apply the BOS principles to all the plants and and all the standards. Because until then, we defined all those tools, we provide this to the plants, we gave trainings, but it was not mandatory, and it was a bit each plant, each region, depending on the maturity level, were defining until then the level of implementation of those tools and the level of utilization of those tools that were available. When we started BOS 2.0, we felt the need, the organization felt the need of having really a standardization in our in the way that we work in Benteler. And I remember that one of the drivers for this was that several of our customers, of our main customers at that time, they claimed a bit that when they were going to one Benteler plant in China or in Brazil or in Europe, they didn't see the same company, right? So outside it was the same name, Benteler, but then in the shop floor, the way how we were working, the way how we were organized was not the same. And some plants were having, for the same customer in some location, a very good performance. And for them, it was surprising how the same company in other location had, in some cases, a very bad performance, right? And so the BOS 2.0, one of the things that wanted also to solve was this, because we need to be one Benteler, one company, where the customers, when they are going and when they enter in one of our factories and when they visit our processes, they have to recognize that they are in a Benteler company. So this BOS 2.0, with the BOS 2.0, there was a redefinition of the complete standardization of the BOS system from top down, and we started to implement the Kaizen methodology, involving, in this case, all the organization until the last level in the shop floor, creating more autonomy for the teams. So creating smaller teams and giving them autonomy to solve problems and to do also continuous improvement, to develop a culture of performance in every area of the company. And one of the tools that Kaizen, that you have helped us to develop, was the Hoshin Kanri. So with the Hoshin Kanri, we started to, let's say, to apply and to deploy our strategy and main targets in a staggered manner from top management to the shop floor. So this gave a sense of coherence to all the processes, and also to the prioritization that we were having then in the regions and in each plant. Because with the Hoshin Kanri, the board of the company, the top management were defining what were let's say, the targets to achieve in 3-5 years time. Then from there, they define what they wanted to achieve the next year, and what were the main initiatives to achieve those targets, and KPIs to monitor those activities, those processes. And then this was deployed to the regions, from the regions to the plants, from the plants to the different areas of the plant until the shop floor. And so in the end, this allowed us to have KPIs in the shop floor that were linked somehow to a major KPI from the top management, and gave a sense of understanding for all the organization for which, for each KPI that we are working, to which part of the strategy of the company, short and long term, are we contributing? Right? This didn't exist before.
Yeah. Nowadays the BOS 2.0 is includes what we can call 4 pillars, but basically they are programs to practice Kaizen. So one is leadership, and you were just describing the Hoshin activities done by the top management. The other one is SIP cycles to do projects. The other one is the daily management or daily Kaizen, and the fourth one is the toolbox support with the academy and the training of the tools and so. So I wanted to go back to this leaders Kaizen that you were explaining, the Hoshin. I remember that we did some boot camps in the beginning in 2016. I think you also participated. How was this received by top management and plant managers? Because this was done at different levels. The trainings, the new trainings for the new way to approach continuous improvement.
Yeah. So as you may remember, so first, maybe then we can talk more later, more in detail about that. But we had also to we felt the need of defining what we call still today an harmonized structure, right? So because one of the also the problems we had, this lack of harmonization and standardization, we had people doing the same function in two different plants with different names. The function was different. The name of the function was different. And sometimes the opposite. Sometimes we had two people with the same name of function in different plants, but they were doing different things. So we felt the need of creating an harmonization of the functions. So defining it really in detail what should be the functions that we should have at all the functions that we should have at plant level, and also defining what are the roles, responsibilities, and main KPIs driven by those functions. So coming to your question now, we created within this frame. We created at that time the function where that. I was assuming VP operations. So this did not exist before. And one of the main targets of this function was to deploy this strategy in each region. So there was one VP Ops nominated in each region. I was nominated as VP Ops from Vice President Operations from Southern Europe. And the main target of that function when was created was to I don't like the word selling, but in the end, to be able to deploy this strategy and to be able to convince in the good way the plants and the plant managers to adhere to this system BOS 2.0. And for that, we defined a process in different waves, where first we created. Or we defined some pilot plants in each region, and in those pilot plants we started to implement the new standards of BOS 2.0 with your support. And of course, at that time, the plant manager of those plants were, when we selected those plants, were plants that were already with a certain level of maturity, and also where the plant managers' profile were, let's say, already adequate to this lean thinking and Kaizen methodology. So the idea was that, let's say, we would test this system in these pilot plants. we would make some fine-tuning and adjustments based on the feedback of the implementation on those pilot plants. At that time, the pilot plant in the region Southern Europe was Palmela, so the plant where I originally was coming from. And then based on those feedbacks and the application of those principles in the pilot plants, then we start deploying the implementation in the other plants in an average of 20 plants for each 6 months. But to do that, we did several trainings. First, in my level, VP Ops training. So let's say to start to develop the system, we did some trainings with the CEO of the company, with you, Kaizen, supporting and guiding us through those trainings. And all the VP Ops from each region that meanwhile was selected, and also some central functions like global supply chain, global quality, global manufacturing engineering. So all this big team started to develop the BOS 2.0 and this, let's say, this integrated system with this complete overview, holistic view of the company, looking at all the areas and not only production, but thinking since the project phase, how to think already in the project, in the, for instance, the machines, what I talked before, how to do the machines more flexible so that we can then, if one project does not have so much volume, how can we utilize those machines to another project, for instance, and that for that we needed to involve also, for instance, the manufacturing engineering. So first, there was these trainings at our level, let's say at second layer of the company. Then when we aligned and we defined, let's say, this BOS 2.0 between us, aligned between us, we applied it in the pilot plants. And at the same time, we start to do some trainings, some waves of trainings with all the plant managers from the other plants. So we brought the plant managers from the other plants to this pilot plant so that we could give them some theoretical training, but then also shop floor training. And we were doing at that time some exercises together with you, where we were doing, for instance, value stream analysis to improve the shop floor. And so it was a kind of a mix between theoretical and practical training, where the plant managers could see the importance and the improvement that this mindset could bring to their plants, right? And at the same time, we could give the plant managers the opportunity also to participate actively in the development of the system, because the system, for sure, at that time we already had the BOS 2.0 system with like you mentioned, with the daily Kaizen, SIP cycles, the toolbox and the leadership. But we could still do some fine tuning, and the plant managers had the opportunity at that time on those training sessions to participate actively and to suggest even some small changes to do in those processes, like in the kamishibais and so on. So there was really an involvement of the whole organization, so that in the end, this was also, I think, key for the success that we have still until today in most of the plants with different maturity levels. But I think it's a very successful process, the implementation of the BOS 2.0, because we did this with the involvement of really all the levels of the company, and this training sessions with the plant manager, these practical and theoretical training sessions with the plant managers have been really very, very important for their adherence, right? Because it was not like in previous times, okay, here you have these tools, or here you have this standard, and now you must implement it, right? Not explaining exactly why, not understanding if it's more applicable in one plant than the other. So this approach was really the one that, in the end, again, with different maturity levels, that gave us the opportunity to have a big adherence in the company, and also the fact that the top management was behind this. So as I mentioned, this for me was key, because then in a certain moment in time, even if there was some few plants that there always are some few plants a bit skeptic about implementing something or believing that the standards that they had before were better than the new standards that the company developed. In the end, with this big wave and this leadership from top management behind, I mean, in the end, there was no other option either to go and to implement the system. Like.
So the approach changed from an approach based on implementing tools to an approach based on engaging the management team, reorganizing the company, and this reorganization of the company. Did it go until the team leader? So did you also look at harmonization?
Yeah,
function?
sure.
Yeah,
sure. This was one of the major changes because when we started to redefine or to define, not redefine because it was not defined before, when we defined the harmonized structure, one of the functions that did not exist, at least with that name in our company, was the function of the team leader. So we had at that time, production manager. Then we had some, what we call now today, production unit leaders that they were at that time with a different function, but let's say persons that were responsible for an area of production. And then those persons at management level directly they had the setters and the team members reporting to them. And so one of the important changes that we implement during the BOS 2.0 implementation. So we identified the need of creating this function of team leader, which is the first level of management in the company, where the team leader typically have the responsibility to manage between 12 till 15 team members, and is not a technician. I mean, his main role is really to manage a team and to manage his installation, and I like to call him the CEO of his installation in his shift, right? Because that person is the responsible for everything that happens in his line, in his process during his shift, starting with safety, passing through quality, doing quality at first time, producing quality at first time, and then of course producing parts quantity according to customer expectation. This was also a big change in the company. It was not easy at the beginning, I have to say, because of course what nobody wanted in the company, starting also with the top management, was to create new functions and to have more people, right? So we had to find a way on how to create this function without increasing the number of employees, and also it was also very important to define training, theoretical and practical training for the team leaders. And so we opened a process inside the company where anyone could apply for the function of team leader. This was driven by HR. We did the assessments of the team, the team leaders with an external company, so to create total transparency and independence. And this was also very positive because we could, let's say, select the best persons with the best profile, with the best skills to act as team leaders. And because also typically this was the approach of the past, the person that was more technical, that with more technical skills, was typical the one nominated as the responsible of the team. And as you know, this is not only in our organization, and many times we have very skilled people, very technical, but they are not good leaders of people. And this was what we had in the past. So when we created now this function of team leader, we did the process like I described before. So we have nominated in the end the persons that were having the best profile to manage teams. And of course, they had technicians with their teams, the setters belonging to the team leaders teams. But they had to do a proper training and to develop their skills, because in the end, to be responsible for their shift of production and to be able to make sure that we respect all the safety requirements, that we don't have any kind of injury from the team, that we try to improve ergonomy, that we produce quality, instead of having quality as auditor and as policeman to check if production is doing things properly, and that in the end we deliver the number of parts that we need to produce every shift. This was a big change in the organization, and this was also key in the BOS 2.0 implementation.
Yeah, you created this, let's say, first level of management, and then you implemented the daily Kaizen, let's say, practices with a team board, with a help chain, with a standard leader standard work, with the activities. And you implemented this in the pilots, I guess, and then you deployed and extended to all the company. And nowadays, is it widespread in all the plants all over the world? Because I think you have more than 70 plants, right?
Yes, exactly. Yes, it's completely spread throughout all the plants. So today, if you go to any Benteler plant in any location, you will see the same team boards with the same standards, with the same agenda for the team leader. One of the things that we created was the standardized agenda for the different functions in the shop floor, the team leader, the production unit leader, even the operations manager, plant manager. So all of us, even me, start to have some parts of our agenda where we have some standard and mandatory activities. Of course, when we look at these agendas from top to down, the team leader have, let's say, 80% of his agenda fulfilled with standards that he has to do every day in every shift. And then, as we grow up in the organization, we of course dedicate more and more time to continuous improvement and not so much to implement the standards. But today in the organization, in all the plants, you see the same boards. You see the daily Kaizen meetings. So we have identified and defined at that time 4 levels of daily Kaizen, from daily Kaizen 1 at team leader level to daily Kaizen 4 at plant manager level. In some plants, because of the dimension of the plant, we skip one of the daily Kaizen meetings, because you can imagine we have plants with 1,000 employees, and we have an extreme case, for instance, in Pamplona, one plant with 30 employees. So, of course, in one plant with 30 employees, makes no sense to have 4 levels of daily Kaizen meetings. But in a plant like Vigo and Burgos, we have all the levels with 300 employees. We have all the levels of daily Kaizen, where the first level, let's say, is the daily Kaizen 1, where the team leader is sharing with this team the performance, typically from the previous shift that they had, and how, globally speaking, that process is performing during the month. Then they have the first level of escalation. So the problems that appear, or the KPIs that are not fulfilled, they have to either to fix it immediately, or if it's not possible, they have to fix an action that ideally they should be able to solve during the shift, and if not, then they have to ask the support of the other departments that are also participating then on the next level meetings, which is the daily Kaizen 2, where the production unit leader is meeting the other plant stakeholders like supply chain, like quality, safety, IT, and he is asking in this case for the support, the maintenance, the support and the involvement of these functions to solve the problems immediately. So we try to, in this case, with these different levels of daily Kaizen, we try to solve within each level all the things that can be solved at that level without escalation to the next one. And this is also a big change to the let's say BOS 2.0, where almost everything in the end arrived to the plant manager's desk, and there was endless daily management teams meetings taking 2 hours, sometimes 2.5 hours, because in the end the management team had to discuss almost all the problems and then had to define solutions for all the problems that happened in the previous day. And with this new methodology, so we empowered the teams in the shop floor to be able to solve their problems. And if they are not able to solve their problems, then they escalate to the next level until the plant manager. And one of the tasks of the plant manager, when some problem arrives to him, is to not only to help the team to solve it, but also to think what does he have to change in the processes below him and in the empowerment of the teams, so that next time that problem happens, it does not need to arrive to his level to be solved. So this is all these improvements. In the end, it's multiple small things done every day by a lot of people in a very standardized manner. This brings us to a level today. When I compare situation in the company today with before, we have really a very, very stable production system. And also in the plants, we don't have today any plant that is in firefighting mode where we are losing millions like we had in the past. So all the plants, of course, with different levels of maturity, with different levels of performance. But and the CEO is also saying this several times. We have never gone through a time in Benteler, a period in Benteler, where we had so much stability in operations. And this is really coming mainly driven by the BOS 2.0 that we started to implement in 2017, because of what I was saying before. We try to empower the teams to solve the problems as close as possible to the shop floor, and so also at the same time as fast as possible. And with this, we release the time of the middle and top managers of the plants, and also of my time, to dedicate to continuous improvement and not to solve the problems of yesterday.
Yeah. So the implementation of daily Kaizen or daily management is really important, and it was something new. And it's really, I know the plants, I visited some of your plants, and I was initially in the implementation stage, and nowadays it's a way of life. It's a very strong chain of command and a very strong chain of problem solving, where the problems are identified quickly and solved as soon as possible, and if they cannot be solved, they are escalated. So it's really one of the most important pillars of continuous improvement. And I like also to ask you about the second, the other pillar that we call SIP Kaizen or SIP cycles.
Mm-hmm.
Is this working in all plants also?
Yeah, sure. I mean, again, with different levels of maturity, but in all the plants, we also have our SIP cycles. Depending on the plants, we may have 2 cycles per year or until 4 cycles per year. So the methodology starts with what we call a value tree, where we identify the main areas where we spend money in the company, and also on the other hand, where we have the major potentials. Because of course, in any company, there are thousands of opportunities, but one of the important things is to define where are we allocating our resources. So to which projects are we dedicating our time? And of course, if in one area we are spending 100,000 euros per year, and in another area we are spending 1 million euros per year, if we dedicate a lot of time and effort to improve, to reduce the cost in that area where we spend 100,000, maybe we can improve and reduce 10,000 euros or something like that, and that would be good for sure. But those resources, if we cannot dedicate at the same time to the other area where we have a potential of 1 million and the same 10% would be 100,000, then we are losing our time, or let's say we are not using efficiency our resources. So with the value tree, we identified these areas of improvement where we have more potential, and involving again all the teams. We identify typically in the end of the previous year. So now, for instance, we are now exactly in this phase. We are now, since October, identifying the projects, the improvement circles for the next year, at least for the first cycle of the next year. And we are defining the prioritization for those SIP cycles. So in this case, the plant manager with this team is analyzing the projects that they present to him. Then, of course, also depending on the potential winning, but also on the capex that we may need, because some projects, some breakthrough projects that are these SIP cycles require some capex. So, of course, also capex is also limited. So, based on the capex that we have and on the projects that we have, we try to maximize, let's say, the potential improvement, right? Spending the less money and maximizing the improvement that we can have. So this is what we are doing in the end in the SIP cycles, and this is one area where I'm also deeply involved, because of course then all the plant managers are asking for money first. Yeah. In their teams are asking money to them for doing several cycles of improvement. Plant managers are asking also this money to the company. And one of my tasks is also, because of course as any company we have limited capex, so is to prioritize and to define which capex to allocate to each plant, in function also of those projects that they are presenting to me, right? And this is also I think motivating for all the plants, because the plants that are bringing projects that are not so interesting, that in the end are not bringing so much benefit, or where the payback is much lower, they potentially will have less money to do their improvement circle. So there is some, let's say, healthy competition between the plants to fight for this capex to implement their breakthrough activities. And then, as you know, in some plants we have a very high maturity level, and we really have a very good level of achievement in these SIP cycles, where we are very, very happy. In some others we are a bit behind, but all in all, in all the plants we have the SIP cycles, and in fact this is one of the main KPIs that I have for one target for my cluster, and each plant have what we call our 3PO system, which is basically where we identify and we quantify in terms of money what is our potential of improvement for the next year, and also on the other hand, what is our commitment of improvement for the next year. As you know, in our industry, automotive industry, we are obliged to improve continuously. Customers are very demanding, margins are very low. In all the projects that we are nominated, it's part of the project that we need to give savings to customers. And of course, if we don't find every year opportunities of improvement, then this means that we are reducing our margin, and then of course we are compromising the competitiveness of the company, and in the end we would be compromising the future of the company.
Yeah, so this is another pillar of the culture of continuous improvement, where you really practice by doing the Kaizen SIP cycles. And of course, you plan this with the value trees. Some of the improvements need investment, of course, like you explained, it's very nice. But I see that besides the organization, the daily management organization, you also have these improvement activities called the SIP cycles. And of course, this is the way we measure the continuous improvement culture is how much practice and how many projects and are people, let's say, implementing and living and doing improvements on a daily basis. And this is very important for a successful change of culture in the company. And so we talked about leadership and the Hoshin process, plant vision, how you deploy the targets, the breakthrough trackers. We talked about SIP cycles, how you do improvements. We talk about daily management, engaging all the organization in problem solving on a daily basis. And the last pillar is what we call, I think Benteler had, the name was toolbox. I don't know exactly nowadays, but it includes the BOS compass. And can you explain what is the BOS compass? And includes, of course, all the trainings and the academy that you have. This is more a kind of support activity for people to learn improvement tools and to do benchmark between the plants. Can you explain how the BOS compass works nowadays?
Yes, so this was a step that we gave later on. So because after the implementation of the BOS 2.0 in 2017, 18. Like I described before, we had different waves of implementation with different grades of adherence from the plants and the regions. So in let's say in 2020, more or less 21, we arrived a certain stability, and since then, let's say all the standards are applied in every plant. So the daily Kaizen meetings, the SIP cycles, and so on. So at that time, around 2020. The company felt the need to create what we call today the BOS compass, where we try to have a tool where we measure in a comprehensive manner the level, the lean implementation maturity level in each plant. Like I told you, it's different, but we could not measure it, and we could not say in this plant is 60% and this one is 70. We could only say before this plant has a lower maturity level than the other, but somehow we felt the need to quantify this maturity level, and BOS Compass is somehow translating this in a number. We also felt the need of creating some roadmaps to further develop the implementation of the BOS 2.0 and to improve the maturity level of the BOS 2.0. So we felt the need of going deep and defining in each standard that was defined how to help the plants to reach a higher maturity level. So this, in the end, brought us to a situation where the global managers from the different pillars, so supply chain, engagement, manufacturing, engineering, production, so safety, so all the main drivers in one plant. In the end, we developed this BOS compass where we describe in detail there are, let's say, 5 different levels of maturity for each pillar, and each pillar has different chapters. So for each chapter, we define in detail 5 different levels of maturity, and we defined what are the standards that should be in place to achieve that maturity level from 1 to 5. From 1 to 4. And also, what are the KPIs that we should have? What are the conditions that we should have in order to reach that level of maturity? So this then also with some booklets that where we were defining this pillar by pillar and chapter by chapter, we were providing this to the plants in order to help them to define roadmaps on how they want to go and how fast they want to go from in each chapter from level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to level 3. This also helped us to create some recognition of the plants that are doing things better. So we create also some prizes. So we have what we call the bronze medal until gold medals award. And so plants that reach a certain maturity level, they could reach this, for instance, bronze medal. Today we have for instance, in my region, we have 3 plants with bronze medal awards. This year we are applying in Vigo, where I am today, also for this bronze medal award. And you see, Vigo is a good plant with a good maturity level, and this year they are applying for the first time for this bronze level award. This means that it's not difficult. So we didn't want to have a system and push the plants to be, or let's say to be, of course, we push them to be in the highest level, but they have to go at their speed, right? So we are providing them all the tools that they need. We are providing the support, we are providing the guidance, but we are not obliging each plant to reach a certain level, right? So we give them some freedom to analyze internally, understanding first in which level they are, comparing themselves with similar plants, and then challenge themselves to go to the next level. So, and doing this with a roadmap in what they have to do in detail. Again, in detail, each chapter, in each pillar, to go from one level to the next level. And this is giving a further standardization level, because this now is, let's say, the next level of details, right? It's not, it's no longer only to have the standard daily Kaizen boards in the shop floor, but also have standard, for instance, maintenance, standard TPM for similar installation. Is to go one level deep in the standardization, and in the end have an ambition for the excellence in all the levels. BOS Compass is providing this to us.
I see, and this is also a very good input when the plants decide which improvements they have to do on the SIP cycles, because they can look at the value tree, they can look at the Hoshin targets, and they can look also at the BOS Compass score and how to improve it. And then they can combine and implement in the SIP cycles several improvements, like you said, in maintenance, in all the areas that are also supporting manufacturing.
Exactly.
And the key thing is that you are not forcing the score of BOS Compass, because sometimes the plants may decide to attack some cost with the value tree, and maybe this is not aligned completely with BOS Compass, but they can decide what to do. Yeah, so exactly. that's I think it's a very logical and a good approach.
And this, with the BOS Compass in the one hand, with Hoshin Kanri that we mentioned before, the SIP cycles, and also then in terms of projects, what are the potential projects for the future of each plant? We are also utilizing in a proper way what we call the plant vision, where the plant is defining their roadmap in the end, from going to the current status to their future status, right? Yes. So they have all the plants now have the opportunity to let's say to define their north star. Based on the level where they are today, they can define by their north star. Also comparing themselves with the other plants, with benchmarking plants, with let's say the best practices that we have in the company, and with all these tools, they define their roadmaps. What are they going to do this year, in the first quarter, in the second quarter, in the third quarter? What are they going to do in the next year to improve and to go one step ahead each time in the direction of this North Star. That, of course, then when they are reaching the next level, of course, then this North Star is also changing.
Yeah, so it's very good. All this explanation. How do you plan the SIP cycles? And this comes from the leaders. It comes also with the Hoshin. So all the, let's say, improvement process that you implemented, they are all together, to bring benefits and improvements to the company. And this is my last question. In this, since you started implementing this system in 2017, 16, 17, when you look back, do you consider the company is really on a continuous improvement mode? Do you see the benefits? Do you see the return on the investment? How do you see let's say, the outcome of implementing the lean enterprise and the continuous improvement system?
Sure. I mean, we have KPIs, right? That come from the Hoshin Kanri, that come from the strategy of the company. And when we look back at several of the main KPIs that we have, like for instance, customer complaints, we came from a level of 2,000 ppms in 17 to around 500 today. Risk cases, we came from a level of around 20 in 2016 to a level of 3 today. In safety, we have an indicator of the safety indicator in the plant that is linked with the number of accidents with loss of working days. We came from a level of 4.7 to a level of 1.1 today. In non-quality costs, we came from a level of 1% non-quality costs to a level of 0.4 today. In net premium freights, from a level of 8 million euros to a level of 0.8. And then also our delivery performance, the level of inventory from 29 days to 24 days. So these are some of the KPIs that we track. Some of them daily, weekly, monthly. That some of them go until the shop floor. I could mention others like OEE. Like gross strokes per hour and so on. Yeah. So these are several KPIs that we track from many years. Some of these KPIs come already from before, from the BOS 1.0, where we can really see this improvement at company level. In some plants, it's really amazing, the level of improvement. In some others, I mean, in all of them there is improvement, but in some plants the improvement is really amazing. And typically those are the plants where we have the highest maturity level. So then this also demonstrates to if we have still some plants or some plant managers or some people in the organization that are still a bit skeptic in relation to the system, the results talk by themselves, right? So there is no way how to deny the evidences, and therefore we don't spend then so much time talking if it's better or not, because the results are there, and then we just have to focus and to dedicate our time to the continuous improvement and not to discuss things that are not measurable, right?
Yeah, and nowadays it's a way of managing, it's a way of life nowadays. And can you also relate this to financial results in terms of profitability of the plants? So you mentioned before that you have much less firefighting, and you have almost no plants that are losing money. But in terms of finance and profitability, do you see an improvement in the last years?
Yeah, sure. Again, different levels from plant to plant. Also, taking into account that some plants lost some volumes in business because, as you know, also the OEMs in Europe are not all of them in the best shape. But okay, all in all, taking all these things into consideration, we improved in an average of 4 to 6% our plant result. We measure our plant result in function of the production performance, in function of the sales. Yeah. So clearly, of course, we see in the end, in the bottom line, the results, also the effects of this approach. I mean, there are other initiatives also in the organization, more related with the sales and purchasing activities. But the good thing is that now all the organization, when we started BOS 2.0, was still very much concentrated in, let's say, the operations, right? When I say operations, including also the other, I mean, all the operation departments like quality, supply chain, and so on. But sales and procurement, for instance, were a bit apart. And today, with the results that we are having in the plants and in the operations, also the management board of the company realized the benefits of implementing this lean factory approach in all the areas of the organization. And so we start to have also, since I would say a few years ago, this the application of these principles also in these other areas of sales and procurement. And so we have now a much broader view. And for instance, one of the let's say the lacks that we had in our Hoshin Kanri was that sales and procurement were not included. For instance, in next year, they are already included also. So the complete company is looking at it in an holistic view, are integrated in the Hoshin Kanri, and then of course in the end this gives a sense that for the organization and for everyone that where everyone is contributing somehow for the strategy of the company, and everyone understands what is their role and to which part of the company they are contributing for the evolution.
So I see that you are expanding from manufacturing excellence to excellence in other areas, like you said, growth areas, sales, purchasing. And this is a way of expanding the system, and it's very good. So Guilherme, thank you very much. It was a very interesting conversation. I'd like also to ask you some, let's say, call it personal questions to finish for the listeners and for the readers of the podcast. And the first one is, what do you do to keep your body and mind fit and sharp?
Well, I travel a lot, okay, because I have these plants, and I like to go to the plants and be in the shop floor. So I travel a lot, and when I'm traveling, unfortunately, I don't do so much exercise. But when I at least at the weekend I'm home, and in the weeks where I'm not traveling, I try to keep my health and my mind fit, and I do yoga. So yoga I practice every week, minimum on the weekends when I'm home. I like very much to practice. When I'm in the weeks when I'm not traveling, I practice every day. Then I also do some swimming. I like to do some swimming. And in terms of physical activities, it's mainly this some walkings in the nature and so on when I can. And this I also do when I'm traveling, because of course I can always give a walk in the end of the working day. Then I also like to read some books. I like to hear some podcasts, to watch some movies. In the summer I like to go to the beach every time I can. I like to take the sun and to have bath in the sea. We are a country that very focused in the sea, and I always had the opportunity to live very close to the sea, so I like very much the the beach, and when possible, also I like to travel with my family. And despite that, I travel a lot for business, but it's of course not the same. And every time I can, I also like to travel with my family.
Yeah, it's always we have to balance stress with recovery, I could
Yes,
say,
sure.
and keep balance. And do you have a favorite business book? Anyone that you can remember?
Well, I remember one book that I read that I liked a lot. It's called Kaizen in Logistic and Supply Chain. I don't know if you
Yes,
if you read that book.
yeah.
No, I also read some books from Jack Welch, and this type of books. But to be honest, I mean I like very much my job and what I do, and I'm working a lot of hours during the day. But then I when I'm reading, I prefer other type of books. So I don't read so much business books. I read a lot of things related with business in the work, but in my, let's say, personal life, I try then to, because I already dedicate so many hours to work, I try to read other things that are not so much related with work.
And what about podcasts? Do you listen to podcasts or not that much?
Yes, I mean, in some of my travels, I drive by car
Yeah.
some hours, and so I like to take the opportunity to listen some podcasts. I listen mostly some Portuguese podcasts, some of them to keep me informed about what's
Ah,
happening also in the country, also with some funny, but also some cultural ones. I like one podcast that is called 45 degrees, 45
yeah,
graus.
I know that one. Yes.
Different subjects, many different personalities, but I like that because some of the things I'm completely out, and then I listening by the podcast, I get a very good information, and sometimes it opens a new area of discovery for me, and where I get some interest. So I also take notes of some of the books they comment, and then I buy some of those books, and I identify some other areas that
Yeah.
I never looked before. So I like very much that podcast.
Yeah.
Then I also like completely different this programa cujo nome estamos proibidos de dizer, legalmente proibidos de dizer. It's a kind of political podcast with some journalists and some comics. And then different one, in this case, music. I like also the podcast Encontros com a Beleza, and also one podcast Despolariza. I also hear from time to time with people with different approach and thinking in some areas completely different than me. But I always believe that we should listen to not only because typically we are close to people that think like us, and I think we need to also to force ourselves to listen to people that think completely different, and some of them really you even don't agree or don't like. But I think we have to give ourselves the opportunity to listen to them, and then make our decisions. Some of these podcasts are giving me this different areas of thinking.
So thank you, Guilherme. It was a very interesting talk. I wish you all the best
Okay,
in
Euclides.
Benteler.
It was a pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.